Hi, I am Tony Russo from Destination Delmarva, and this is part of the Ocean City Film Festival retrospective that we have put out. And what I've done is I've collected up all of the interviews that made up the big show, and I'm releasing them independently because there are some great interviews and there's some extra details that maybe didn't make the show, but certainly are worth knowing about. And in this episode, we are speaking with BL Strang-Moya, who is the guy. He was there at the beginning. He and Rena Thaler kind of made this whole thing happen. And I love that it's his vision. I love to hear how passionate he is about it. And you're about to hear in a second how, crazy into the film festival and the idea of helping independent filmmakers get their films shown, and specifically shorts, which is interesting. And we talk a little bit about it in the episode. So let's just get into it with BL, and I will catch you on the other side. Let's start with how you came up with the idea. Is it fair to say that you came up with the idea of having the Ocean City Film Festival? Is it closed?
I think it is fair to say to some extent. It's kind of weird. I mean, when I think back about how it actually started, I personally view it as like failing upwards, right place, right time kind of deal. And like, it really is a matter of me pitching an idea that was sort of adjacent to the film festival, and then Rena at the Art League, the idea of a film festival was floating around in her head, so we just kind of put two and two together. Yeah, I didn't approach this with vision. I just was offered this opportunity and was like, well, I'll figure it out. And it just kind of worked out.
Well, tell me the story of how you got together with Rena for this.
Yeah. So it would have been 2016. So January 2016. It didn't really occur to me that I would I would need to find a real job after college. So, I am so horrible at future planning, ironically. So I was looking at prospects back in the Ocean City area because it's like, well, I don't think I really had the confidence or know-how to like try to build a future in like an actual like city. So one of the things that came up when I was looking up arts opportunities and contracting opportunities was the Art League of Ocean City. This would have been fall 2016. So I ended up talking to them, working it out. So it come like January, over like a month's time, I was instructing a course on filmmaking to high school age students, like an after school sort of thing. And simultaneously that January, because it was the mini-mester, I was on break from college, a good friend of mine from film school, Towson University, I was the producer and DP for his thesis film, which we were shooting in Ocean City. And it was like the last week for each of these things happening, and we needed a location for this film. So I contacted Rena, who I kind of knew at the time, and I was like, hey, we're shooting this film. Can we shoot in the gallery because we don't have a location? She was like, sure. So then after the fact, like once this entire crazy whirlwind month of like me getting a taste of, I guess, what my future would be for then until now was like, we sat down and I was like, well, we shot part of the movie here. Would it be okay if we hosted a screening of the movie here? And she said, sure. Rena said that they were actually looking for someone to, organize a film festival. Because apparently in the recent past, they had been approached by an outsider, so to speak. Not that I wasn't, but I guess I was more qualified in some ways. But an outsider who wanted to host a film festival with the Art League. But I was like, yeah, I would love to. Let's keep talking. Let's figure it out. I'm sure we could put something together, for the summer. Like that would have been summer 2017. So, yeah, we shook hands, said goodbye. I remember getting in my car afterwards, and Kristen, my wife, was waiting in the car for me. And I was like, well, I'm making a film festival. That's like a thing now. And I had no idea what it meant, but it felt good. It felt like a hopeful and promising thing that was going to be a part of my life from that moment forward. In like the literal nuts and bolts sense, that's how it came to be. Not a lot of vision, because my only experience with film festivals prior to, that period of my life was, I think I had volunteered at the Maryland Film Festival a few times. And of course, at the Towson Electronic Media and Film Department, they had their end of semester screenings, which are run like a very traditional sort of film festival format. So I just kind of took those concepts and ran with them.
That's interesting. I would have. Does Towson have a film festival now?
Not necessarily. When I was a student, and I don't know if they still do it. They did host the Women and Minority and Media Film Festival, Wham Fest as they call it. I don't know if they still do it. I never volunteered or worked with that, but it wasn't necessarily a department-run thing, but it was hosted there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of every semester, when all the students are done their projects, they do have like their big screening that is operated kind of like a film festival.
Yeah, and I would expect it's interesting. I would have thought that like how to run a film festival might have been a class, but that's not one of the things that.
Apparently it was at one point. I never took
Oh,
that
right.
class. You know? I'm not kidding when I say like this is all just happenstance. I fell back asswards up the stairs, like, and you know it's a pair of shoes I had to grow into. Trial and error and mistakes have been my greatest teacher in these past 10 years.
And so you started talking about doing it in 2016 or 15, and then it ran in 16.
I think I actually misspoke there because the first season happened in 2017. 2016 is when I actually got introduced to the Art League of Ocean City, the organization that sanctions it all. So yeah, June 2017 is when it started, and January 2017 is when I was doing that stuff. So
tell me about how you got it together that first year, and what it looked like, and what the whole.
Oh man, we got it together by the skin of our teeth. I'm sure the evidence is like buried in years worth of emails, but like I don't remember if we had tried. So we definitely had to have had like a preview night for that festival. So like we organized a screening in late spring of 2017 to give people a taste of like the movies we're going to show. But, organizing it, I guess the real first step was going on filmfreeway.com and setting up a page for our festival, which I'm really proud of now because we have amazing reviews, and it's where almost all of our submissions come from. And if you're not familiar, filmfreeway.com is a platform for film festivals and filmmakers to connect and sort of mutually market one another. Basically, a film festival can make their Film Freeway page, and from there, filmmakers can create a shopping cart full of these film festivals they want to send a film to. And it's a really streamlined process to connect the dots. So that was the first step. And I'd never done that before. So season one, we weren't charging submission fees. We were just like, all right, whatever gets sent to us. We'll hope it's not dubious. And like for the most part, it was great, but that was like 700 plus submissions that came through in like this, I would say, 5-month span.
Wow.
Like I said, I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't have a jury. It was just like me and like one or two other people and this big pile of films. And it's like, how on earth do we tackle this? We got to narrow this down into a selection that can be like showcased for a weekend. And it was really daunting. So by the time we did end up showing, I think, just under 150 films that first year, which is remarkable. I'm surprised it happened, and the way it happened, we could continue doing it because I know AV systems. Right. I didn't realize things like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have a 3-hour block of short films and no curated order. That kind of thing, and if you do have a showcase that long to begin with, maybe you put it in an actual movie theater instead of a venue where we only have folding seats. It was a real fly by the seat of our pants kind of thing. And I was also a full-time student. That was my last full semester at Towson University, which was good and bad because, I had to come back to Ocean City a lot to work on this thing. And thank goodness, my professors realized like this is actually for the greater good. Let's excuse them. Let's just turn a blind eye at all this missed classwork. And then, years later, these professors would submit their films and like they would be able to see for themselves, how they helped plant the seed and water it and how this thing grew. So yeah, season one was just like the most basic, fundamental, like watered down festival ever. And still it just I was learning, the Art League was learning because they had never done any sort of film programming prior.
Mm-hmm.
It was just everything just happened so perfectly and imperfectly because it was sloppy. It was a shit show, but it worked, and we did it again. I can laugh about it now, but for a long time I could only cringe when I thought about how things were going.
The idea was, I guess the takeaway from the first year was that there's an appetite.
Basically, that is what we learned from season 1, is that there is an appetite for it. There is a community of people who will show up, whether it's as audience members or as, participating artists. And that's just been so inspiring to see because, in those early years, much like with any sort of arts movement, I guess, whatever comes out of the woodwork can be kind of scrappy, can be kind of schlocky, especially with film. But, we continue to do it, and just the content becomes more competitive because, it's so important for filmmakers, especially independent ones, to be able to see what other people coming from similar backgrounds with similar resources are doing. And that's why film festivals are such a healthy practice, regardless of the fact that you want to go and network, win awards, etc. You also want to be able to see where you are as a filmmaker compared to others.
When those 700 films came in, I guess the first thing was, well, next year we have to have at least a fee of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
But what was your process for getting through them? Because how many people were working on it at the time?
It's actually a great thing that we weren't charging anything, because I'm sure some slipped through the cracks. 700's a lot. And, I had so little discipline for what I did watch anyways, but yeah, it was just honestly me and maybe one or two other people, my wife, Kristen, and probably my buddy Jarrett, and whoever else. I could just be like, hey, will you sit down and watch these with me? And let's just talk about them. So priority was given to okay, this filmmaker's from Maryland or Virginia. It's they'll probably come out to the festival, support it, etc. And that kind of thought process today is still present when, we're in situations like now. We have a jury of maybe about 25 people the past couple of years. And, it's not the same people each time, but it's a big committee of people just being assigned these films to review. And if there's a really close tie between two films based on their score, that kind of thinking comes back, because it's okay, well, it's a great film, but we really want to make this film festival about the experience for filmmakers. And okay, are they going to show up? Can they engage with the audience? Or is this film, was this sent to us by someone who has never even read the acceptance email that we sent them? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's been interesting. And back then, we always called ourselves a mom and pop film festival because it was just so low key and informal. But now it's oh, well, shit, we're established. We gotta be thoughtful and administrative about these things.
And it did well enough because you said the first one was in the summertime, but then it moved to March in the second year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we had no idea who would show up. So the logic would be, it's okay, Ocean City, summertime. People are going to be in town. Let's give them something to do. But, people come to Ocean City in the summer. They have an MO. They know what they're going to do. They're going to go to the beach. They're going to get drunk. They're going to do whatever they do. People who want this kind of thing will seek it out. We realized then and there, from, our time on the ground making this thing happen, watching the audiences interact with people and all that, it's oh, very obviously, there's a specific person that comes to this, and it's not we're going to pull any random person off the street and they'll be enthused about it. It goes back to the idea of people coming out of the woodwork to support this. So the idea for season 2 was to do it in March, which was a great decision, and obviously we've stuck with it since, because someone once described Ocean City in March as comparable to, Ireland weather. It's just not great. It's windy, it's damp, it's just, there's not much to do, and whatever there is to do, you hope it's inside.
Right.
So that works out perfectly. Then you factor in that hotels are going to be a whole lot cheaper, and you factor in that there aren't that many other events. So if we send out press releases, we're going to get more press regardless, because there's not much competing with us. So all these things lined up and really have been a powerful piece of our formula year after year. And we haven't really had a problem with audience turnout in March. I mean, we always market ourselves as 100 films each year, mostly shorts. I think the lowest we've done is maybe I don't know, 60 or 70, but people like to come to it. We just showed movies at Comic-Con in Ocean City, and these filmmakers came, and they had never been to Ocean City in like the wintertime. And they were like, wow, this is so cool. This is so weird. I'm like, yeah, man, you have no idea. So yeah, I think there is a certain charm to the off season, especially to the kind of people who patronize our film festival.
And I'm sorry, was that this year? Because didn't they just have Ocean City Comic-Con?
Yeah, it was just a couple weeks ago that this happened. Yeah, we had this awesome movie called Transformers Terminal that was both an ode to and flaying of fandom culture in the modern age. I really recommend it. It's free on YouTube. It's so funny.
And how did you work that out? Is that something that's going to happen with some regularity?
Showing movies at Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Oh, we've been doing that for years. I don't remember exactly when.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we don't always get the biggest turnout, but
And so that first year, do you two things? Did you have a keynote speaker, and who was it? And what films stood out?
So in the early years, the early years being like the first 2 or 3 years, I would say, the keynote speeches would happen like, opening night or whatever. I don't think the mayor started showing up for those first couple of years, maybe in 2019, but season 1, I distinctly remember local filmmaker, real estate agent, he even ran for a state delegate at one point, Dan O'Hare. He has a background in film and television. He had worked at MTV in New York, so he had just the year before released his first feature film, and he was a big proponent for the festival, and he still helps us out a lot now. So yeah, he gave a speech. But it was at Plim Plaza, which where our first ever opening reception was, which was really cool because it was like a pool bar. It was like the most stereotypical like Ocean City, kickoff you could think of. As far as like major films that we showed, this is where we really learned a lot about like programming and content, because like I know for a fact there was like a handful of films that were like really well received, because they might have been produced locally or gotten a lot of local attention. Like, for example, Dan's film, The Rehearsal. Like, he's one of those guys that, like, shakes hands with everyone everywhere he goes. So, like, he can fill an audience, like, no problem. So, like, his film got big, and it's not like we gave it any special marketing or anything. And then there was another situation where the only film that we licensed that year was called Rat Film, directed by Theo Anthony. And it was a documentary about the rat problem in Baltimore. And I heard about it because it was making moves at the Maryland Film Fest. So I'm like, okay, we got to get it. I didn't know anything about anything at this point. So it's like, I don't remember what the interaction was like or what the ask was like when it was like, hey, we want to show your film. We paid a licensing fee. I don't even know if the film had distribution at that point, which is hilarious. And, he mailed us the DCP, digital cinema package, and I still have the flash drive it came on. And we showed it, and like, yeah, people went to it, but it didn't make waves,
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, a couple of years ago, I ended up moderating a Q&A for this like indigenous short film screening in Easton, where his roommate, filmmaker Sky Hopinka, was like the guest filmmaker, and I was talking to him. He's like, oh yeah, I'm roommates with this guy, Theo Anthony. And I'm like, funny story about that guy. I interacted with him once. We showed his film. So it's a small world.
And so what did you learn about licensing in the first couple years, and how has it changed between then and now?
We had this other film, and listen, I don't know the statute of limitations about these things, so I'm going to be kind of vague. But anyways, we showed this film about a famous rock band and their new frontman who came from absolute nowhere in an Asian country. So this really cool rock documentary that I thought would be awesome in Ocean City. And the woman who directed it, I had met at Towson University. She was affiliated with the professors. She was like friends with the department. So every once in a while, they would call her up and be like, hey, can you talk to the students? And she was so nice, and she's such a phenomenal filmmaker. She, before the festival, I actually went out to lunch with her, and she gave me like great advice on doing this. And she was like, yeah, you could show my film. And granted, she probably didn't know that I needed to know this, but like no mention of the fact that like, oh, by the way, you have to talk to our distributor and pay X amount of money and include me on the email, blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, all right, whatever. And then, of course, not knowing any better, I went ahead and bought the DVD, and it was just like, all right, handed it to the venue operator. Here, play this time on this schedule.
Oh, wow.
And we showed it, and it was fine. I mean, nothing bad came of it, right? So, so then after the fact, like a few months after the festival, she emailed me like, hey, how'd it go? Blah, blah, blah. I never heard back from you. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't hear from you. So we went ahead and showed a DVD. And all she said was, not cool, William, period. And that's the last I ever interacted with this woman. I'm like, I don't get it. What'd I do? Now, after years of experience, it's like, this past month has been a critical period for season 10 trying to license works, because we have a lot of really solid stuff from FilmFreeway. But then we face situations like, okay, this person sent us their film, we hit accept. Then they come back to us, they're like, well, now you have to pay a licensing fee because we have distribution. And it's like, well, you never said that anywhere in your submission, so I'll submit the form, but I'm just going to plead my case like, hey, you never mentioned this. And sure, we might be able to afford it, but, that's not okay on our end, at least. And then, we're showing a really cool movie called Deathstalker 2025, featuring Patton Oswalt. And this film, I contacted distributor, I believe Shout Studios, and I was like, hey, we're this little festival. We want to license a screening of this film. And they gave us a quote on licensing the film. And I was like, all right, that works for us after talking with my committee. And then, I didn't hear back from them for a while. Then I follow up and they're like, oh, we're just going to go ahead and waive the fee. You don't have to pay us. Here's a file. So, what I've learned about licensing, and, I could have said this in fewer words, but that story is very important to me.
No, it's a great story.
What I've learned about licensing is, it's kind of, in many instances, bullshit, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I think filmmakers should get paid, right? But I don't like that it's this weird sort of bargaining with these faceless entities. Like IFC, for example, have been dodging my emails about licensing Baltimoreans, and I don't care if I'm saying that on the record. I've been really consistent, and they're not about it. But then I go on like AMC Plus, and I see, oh, AMC Plus has the film. Do they just not want to deal with the back and forth logistically of having to coordinate with this no-name film festival who wants to show this movie that's already been released for X amount of time,
Yeah.
So, it's not like there's a standard fee for licensing a movie, because we've never had just a standard quote across the board for anything. Sometimes it's like $250 for a screening of a film, 2 screenings. Other times it's like $750 for 1 screening of a film. And when you organize these things, you got to tell them where you're showing it, when you're showing it, how many people are going to show up, what kind of file you need. And there's enough variables that aren't really certain for a festival of our scale that, we can negotiate like all of it right then and there. But that's also been advantageous because, again, when I go to these people, I downplay as much as possible that, like, yep, we are this tiny little festival on the East Coast. We would love the opportunity to show this film. We don't have a lot of monies. Can you do something for us? So,
so you mentioned Deathstalker, so we'll bring up Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
Was John Waters the first like big name that you guys had to speak? And talk to me about some of your speakers and how you ended up with Patton Oswalt.
We've had like films in our program that might feature like a big name or two. We don't always catch them because, we have a committee of people who won't always recognize the artists or actors or filmmakers or whoever. So like even in season 1, when we had some of these bigger titles that showed this nationally famous rock band, right? We also had a film called Red Christmas, which is a cult horror Christmas classic starring Dee Wallace, who was the mom in like every 80s horror movie, including but not limited to Gremlins, right? So prior to John Waters, I think the biggest ones were definitely John Chester, Biggest Little Farm, which is now a series on National Geographic.
Right.
And, he's a Decatur graduate. That was a big deal for us back in 2019. Following year, we had none other than the local Unseen Productions, who produced Beach and Beyond, Hooked on OC, bunch of other stuff. Dave and Simona keep very busy, and they made a phenomenal film, a documentary about local legend Reggie Mariner. The film was called Reggie's Forest. That was a huge hit. We had an awesome panel for that. That was 2020, which, funny enough, that festival happened like, I think 5 days before the whole nationwide shutdown, counting our blessings there. But those are a few. We had a film I think in 2022 called The Game Is Up, about disillusioned Trump voters who sort of turned a page, like, and it featured people like Congressman Joe Walsh, who actually came to the festival. So it's like that kind of stuff happens not infrequently.
Mm-hmm.
John Waters, we got 22 and 23, and I mean that was a trip. That was a real full circle moment, because of course in season 1 everyone was like, oh, you should get John Waters, and we're like, yeah, of course we would, but you know, it was like one thing to learn how to license things, then it was another thing to learn how to, like, you know, get actual famous people to show up. And now it's like we had John Waters 2 years in a row, then we had John Chester again, now we're bringing Patton Oswalt, but like in between we've had a lot of correspondences with just random, like, names and entities that we wouldn't think about. I think it's going to be a mainstay having, like, a special, like, speaking type performance as opposed to just a special filmmaker guest. Because, you know, with our festival, yeah, there's a lot of movie going. Yeah, we have awards, the whole song and dance, but we're always trying to elevate it beyond that because, you know, we like to incorporate parties, happy hours, industry panels. And then, you know, incorporating a comedy show was really different because it brought out a crowd who kind of likes film, more so wants to get this piece of entertainment. It's just a really cool way to spread the umbrella. And Patton Oswalt's a great choice because, aside from being a known comedian, an actor, he also has a huge reputation on record as being a big cinephile. I mean, based on his books and the content of his stand-up. So really on a whim, we decided to just see if we could get him, and it worked out fairly quickly. You know, he grew up in Sterling, Virginia. He lived in Baltimore for a while. He does have local ties, and undoubtedly, he's at least heard of Ocean City, Maryland.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, I think it's one of those things where it's like very conveniently this sort of hometown adjacent entity reaches out while he's also working his next show. Because even when we had John Waters back in 2022, John Waters was also doing like a leg of his comedy show. And but what we did in 2023 instead of a comedy show was a live commentary to the film Hairspray, which was also really interesting.
Right. And so what do you think the kind of future holds? What are you looking forward to in the next 10 years?
Well, I'd like it to be my only source of income.
I was just about to say, because this isn't your full-time job.
No.
That was going to be, and I'm like, you know what? Don't put him on the spot like that. But you started answering the question. So yeah, so do you see this growing to that size, or?
I don't fucking know, man. And it's been a big part of like growing up for me for the past 10 years, because, you know, a lot changes in your life between like 20 and 30, and I just turned 30. So like, a lot of it was like, oh, well, this is going to open up opportunities for me as both a, you know, filmmaker and like film festival organizer, yada, yada. But like at the same time, it's like, well, there's still a lot of uncertainty that comes with it. And, you know, it's like, yeah, I still have to have a full-time job aside from this. And especially with like the pandemic, there have been times of uncertainty. It's like, well, you know, am I going to get my normal rate for this season or whatever? So yeah, in 10 years, I would love for it to be my only source of income and a very comfortable source of income. But ultimately, I think the goal and the goal that I see exceeding year after year is just a more enhanced organizational approach to this whole thing. I mean, what really gets me high about this whole thing is like when the weekend actually comes and we're organized to a T and we're making things happen. It's like if anything comes up, like I got to drive 7 miles across the island to go put out a fire here. It's like we have such a committed and dedicated team of people who will just fight tooth and nail to make sure this thing happens. And that is just invaluable to me. And to see it strengthen season after season just means so much. And I specifically want to call out Dylan Jones, our tech director. This guy is fucking insane. Like he doesn't sleep a wink during the entire weekend. I guarantee it. I don't know, you know, you think about the archetype of a mad scientist, just this person who can just totally power down and only focus on this one thing, and at the expense of every other piece of their existence. And like, yeah, I think to some extent I do the same this weekend, but no, this guy, oh my God, and he doesn't even do drugs. So, it's really awesome just to, have my pirate crew making shit happen. I love it.
What are some of the big wins? Talk about some of the films that have done well elsewhere, and like, do you like, see, I knew that was a good film, that kind of.
Yeah. Oh man. So, I mean, one of the big examples is with Unseen Productions, because I'd been talking with Dave Messick, I'd met the guy in passing for years up to the 2020 festival when we really got him on board, and then he makes this film that he's able to take all over the country, all over the world. Reggie's Forest, that documentary I'd mentioned. And then what was it, 2020 or 2021? I don't remember the year. Not long after, he teams up with this Ukrainian filmmaking team to produce this short called Hedgehog about the war in Ukraine. And it was just so beautifully done, beautifully shot. And not to mention the fact that it was shot on Mariner's Country Down, where Reggie's Forest is about. So, and then that film goes on and makes festival waves. That's one example. Another is even that other documentary I mentioned, The Game Is Up. And I think you talked to Carrie Craven, who produced that. We showed that in 2022. And then she gets a call from Jeff Dowd, who is like the guy who Jeff Bridges' Big Lebowski character is based on. This fucking guy owns a distribution company now. So he personally calls Carrie and her people, is like, hey, I saw you guys were at Ocean City. I want to license your film. And then that film gets distribution, in part, I'd like to believe, from, just being so prominently featured in our program. I don't know. There's a lot of really dedicated people, even on the Eastern Shore, people who I've seen start making films, something scrappy and weird, and eventually, they year after year, they keep making new content. And I'm like, oh, you're learning, you're getting better, you're building your network. Right. And it's really inspiring to see. The other example I'll share is a film I produced in part called Peer. It was written and directed by Marlon Wallace. He's an editor at WBOC. He's on our jury. Anyways, this movie, short film about these two young men of color in Ocean City who fall in love. It's like a quintessential rom-com kind of deal. And it's a short film. And somehow, once we finally got the edit, so we shot this thing in 2021. I don't think it was finished till 2023 because that's just how life goes. And we finally get it done. We premiere it. It's great, blah, blah, blah. On a whim, in the most half-assed way possible. This really brings it full circle. In the most half-assed way possible, I go to this website that Marlon tells me about, this streaming platform called Deku. And this platform, I had never heard of it. It syndicates to a bunch of other platforms, I think Apple, Amazon. I'm not sure, to be honest, but I know it's one of those situations. So he's like, hey, this platform, I think, would be willing to screen this film. Can we reach out to them? So I'm like, sure. So in the most half-assed way possible, I go on Deku's website. It's this streaming platform that is exclusively geared towards gay men and TV, movies, etc. And I just put in the contact form hey, we made this short film, looking for distribution. I've never right. Cold emailed a distributor before. So, and then I put the link to the Vimeo, and then they immediately get back to me. It's oh yeah, we'll give you 3 years of non-exclusive streaming rights and $1,000 for your film. And we're like, oh, well, that's awesome. Because first of all, short films never, ever get distribution. That's something they hammer into you in film school. But on a whim with this film that we had no idea. So that was a huge win. I think that distribution deal's over as of this year, but it's awesome to be go on IMDb or Letterboxd and just see things that we've seen at the festival. That's super meaningful.
I mean, kind of along those lines, and this is more media than Ocean City specific, but do you think that the idea of short films not getting distribution is still a thing, or do you think that that's something that might be going away as streamers get, more interested in short form content?
That's hard to say. And I always think about the Quibi platform, which was tragically terminated. But
asked and answered, yeah.
but at the same time, based on my own experience and the people that I like to associate with, the filmmakers, the artists, like in film school, at least at Towson, I don't know if it's like this for every film school, you're basically told that you make a short film, and that short film is, in essence, your calling card. You take it to festivals, people can see what you're made of, and that's how you get big jobs on actual, like, union feature productions. I don't really like that thought process, and I don't like that format because it's like, why can't a short film be its own standalone enterprise? Where at the Ocean City Film Festival, that's a lot of what we see is these short films that are their own, like, standalone things. Like, another filmmaker I love, honestly, one of the most talented people on the Eastern Shore, as far as I'm concerned, is Rob Waters. He won, like, the Dogfish Head short film making competition at Alamo Drafthouse, like,
Wow.
I don't know, 15-something years ago. And since then, he just hit the ground running with W Films, his production company out of Lewis. He's made some phenomenal short films, and they don't aspire to be anything more than short films. He said to me years ago that, like, he does client work, he keeps himself busy, he gets contracts, but as long as he can make one film for himself a year, he'll be happy. And he doesn't really concern himself with, like, trying to do some big aspirational feature thing. It's like, if you can make a tight short, it's still a tight short,
Yeah. You just set this off in my head, but I think of, like, the Turner Movie Classics.
Uh-huh.
Like, they'll show 20 minutes worth of shorts or half an hour worth of, short reels. So they show the reels from like they used to do back in the day, where there'd be a feature and a couple of shorts and a newsreel and a cartoon. And it doesn't seem like something too far-fetched to throw in between two movies on HBO.
Yeah, not at all. And honestly, like, the reason that we're able to show so many films at the Ocean City Film Festival is because we have blocks of shorts, which that's our bread and butter. And this year, specifically, we have more blocks of shorts than last year, but some of these blocks are only like a half hour long. And it might be like one or two films in that half hour block, but, we try to, put them together based around common themes. I think there is as much substance in shorts as there are features. And it's funny because there's also a lot of discourse these days about how movies are kind of too long. Used to be able to, like, watch 90 minutes and have, like, a nice, concise beginning, middle, end, nothing excess. And now everything is pushing like 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
The best thing about my job is when I get to speak with people like BL, or actually pretty much everyone I get to speak with, when I talk to them about their passions, because, people always ask me, well, what are you going to ask? I'm like, well, I'm going to ask about you, and you're the expert on you. So don't worry about it. You know all the answers. And to let someone talk about why they're excited about what they do, it just gives me such pleasure. And this was just a great conversation. And BL's a good guy, so that, of course, makes things a lot easier. Thank you so much for listening. This show was written, edited, and produced by me, Tony Russo. If you are not a subscriber to Destination Delmarva, I would really appreciate it if you considered it. You can just subscribe. It is free to subscribe, and we have all sorts of stuff from Ocean City, all the way from stuff about Ocean Pine, stuff about Berlin. We have Day Drinking on Delmarva, which is Todd DeHart and I just talking off the top of our heads for half an hour, but we're lovable, and I think that it's a show worth listening to. So all of that you can find at destinationdelmarva.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.